Good morning, Sloan. How are you?
Good, man. It's a nice early morning start today. Things
It
going
sure is.
well.
Yeah. So much has been going on. So welcome everyone to the Post AI podcast. So basically we are talking about life and society as it is integrated into artificial intelligence and its effect on the world. And our real goal with the podcast is to kind of make sense of human meaning and talk about positive ways that we can interact with AI because it's coming. It is here. We're living in a post AI world.
Yeah, it's wild, man. I've been spending a lot of time working with diffusion models just this last week, and the stuff that just within like this last week that we're able to do, it's just mind blowing. Uh, you know, things that you needed to do with a Photoshop artist, that you needed somebody who's like really good at that. Now you can do in Stable Diffusion, and I'm not just talking about like an image generation. I'm talking about like image editing. So I can put somebody that I want in a picture where I want, in the pose that I want, wearing the clothes that I want, um, doing the thing that I want them to do, uh, versus typing up a prompt saying, put a person running away from a fire truck.
Hmm.
Now I can put an actor in there, and I can have them in the pose that I want, and I can also light them the way I want, and they have 5 fingers. Yeah, it's pretty nuts. There's a whole bunch of new features that have just been coming online, where you could really control things to an insane level with it, which is awesome because to me, I I've always wanted to do that stuff with an image, but I just didn't have the the time to kind of become like a Photoshop like guru. And
Right.
Photoshop guys could do this all day anyway. But now, like a guy like me who's got an idea can actually like implement it. And it's not like super fast, but it's way faster than learning Photoshop for 10 years and and figuring it out.
Yeah, I was the guy who learned Photoshop for 10 years.
Yeah,
and then it's actually crazy how much time you can save. So I've just been doing kind of simple applications and stuff like that. Like I've been using a cutout AI that basically just cuts subjects out of
yeah,
off of backgrounds, and I've been using an upscaling AI, which is basically just it takes an image and resizes it to be larger and fills in the details so it still has the resolution. And so just simple stuff like that has like tremendously supercharged my workflow. But that's really, I mean, those are really simple, separate web tools.
yeah,
I also don't really fully know what is like AI and what's just but branded
yeah,
as AI.
yeah.
So I don't know if tools are just getting really good or if AI really is connected to everything.
Yeah, I think a lot of stuff is using the gang, like there's a whole bunch of different like AI visual how do I say this so I don't sound silly, but like machine learning tools. Uh
Yeah,
and so maybe they're like using part of the AI to do it, but yeah, they're not exactly like ChatGPT for images quite yet.
yeah. Now what? So I've been using just all these online libraries and things like that, online service tools, basically. You're saying Stable Diffusion?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time trying to get Stable Diffusion to work on my Mac, and I got it to work, but I realized it really likes CUDA, the CUDA cards from the CUDA technology from NVIDIA. So
Huh.
I kind of and I'm running AMD on here. So
Interesting.
I found a really cool resource. It's called RunDiffusion.com, and basically it's a virtual hosted Stable Diffusion platform. And you just pay per hour, and you can get a blazingly fast video card, and I think it's probably running on like a AWS server.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, you just pay a few bucks per hour, and you've got a killer machine, and they're updating it constantly. So, uh,
I I saw your Facebook status or your LinkedIn status. I don't know which it was when you got that working. I was like, oh, we're gonna talk about that.
yeah, that was the first image I made to generate. It was funny. It was really bad.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But it's pretty amazing, man. Some of the stuff, I don't know who it is. Like the community around Stable Diffusion is just like everybody is working at like this breakneck speed. Things are coming online all the time, like
Yeah.
insane technologies. Just like these guys are just making for free. I don't know who these people are. Like they're staying up like 24 hours, like creating like these new plugins, like ControlNet and Diffusion and all that kind of stuff. It's nuts.
For those who don't know, including somewhat me, because I'm not very caught up on this, what is Stable Diffusion? What are you doing? What are
Yes.
people doing with it?
So Stable Diffusion is a diffusion-based AI image generator.
Okay,
And
what's
so
diffusion?
it basically takes noise
Okay.
and it builds an image off of noise. And so that's how like DALL-E and Midjourney and a bunch of others work. And there's other kinds of methods out there. Like I think it's called Style Gang, but I don't know it 100% well. But basically, Stable Diffusion is the open source version of the diffusion models. So when you work with DALL-E 2, which OpenAI made, and Midjourney, you have to pay per like credits.
Yeah.
But Stable Diffusion is an open platform, and basically they're allowing developers to build on top of it. And so it's just constantly changing. Like literally every day, there's something new that comes along and enhances the capabilities of it.
That's so interesting. Well, and I was trying to explain how like Midjourney and things like that work recently. I forget who I was trying to explain it to, but I also didn't know it that well, and I was kind of telling them that as I went along. But what I was trying to clarify is like it's not like CG, right? It's not like creating CG models of all of this stuff. It's taking aggregate data similar to how like a language model, like a large language model, is going to almost do like predictive text, where it's going to say, well, what's most likely to come next? And then you kind of plug knowledge bases and data sets into that, and you say, okay, well, what's most likely to come next in this word sequence? But we also know this other language, we also know this other data about the world that then, corrects and informs what we're about to say. It's exactly like that. And you're basically saying it's done with diffusion, which is basically like noise on images.
Yep. Basically, no, it starts as just literally noise, and then it builds the image from the noise. And so it takes random noise patterns and then can figure it out. Now I'm going to blow your mind. The researchers this week just took Stable Diffusion, and they created another like plugin with it, and they put research subjects in an MRI machine, scanned their brains while they were looking at an image, and then the AI read the noise and then used Stable Diffusion to create an image, and it generated this almost the same image. So like the researchers gave them a picture of a bunny, and so Stable Diffusion went and created a bunny in the same composition, and then they gave them an image of something else, and then Stable Diffusion generated an image. So basically, they used Stable Diffusion to see the mind's eye of these subjects.
Wait a second. Okay, hang on a sec. So these people were plugged into an MRI machine, and they're basically getting two things. One, they're looking at a picture, and two, they're getting a picture like created by Stable Diffusion.
Yes, they're looking at a picture, and then the researchers are seeing what's in their brain.
Oh my gosh. So wait a minute. How is that working? So
I don't fully understand, but basically what the AI is able to do is take the signals which seem like noise from the brain,
Oh my God.
and then they're able to translate that noise into pictures like stable diffusion with stable
Whoa.
diffusion. Yeah.
So
Now
what
I don't know how long these people sat in there for and like really concentrated on these things, but still, like that's
if I really focus, I can get my picture of a bunny rabbit to come out clearer.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's crazy. So what is noise?
Uh, Man, it's something that's it's a randomness of information. So what's the right way to say this? It's like something in a high state of entropy where
Mm.
it's just chaos. Uh, and so it makes order out of chaos.
Yeah. Well, growing up, using Photoshop constantly, um, one of the things you would do to make the stuff that you create more realistic is you would actually use like the add noise tool, which randomizes patterns on top of your image. And so you would, kind of create something that looked way too smooth, and then you'd add selective noise on top of it and stuff like that. So it's interesting, like you're kind of instead of adding noise in, which is what I've primarily done, you're using the noise and the entropy that's already there to kind of generate and identify what's coming next, similar to like the large language models.
Yeah, yeah. It's nuts. Like when you first think about it, like how would you even come upon this idea? Like let's use just random noise to start building an image. It is strange.
Yeah, that is a really, like, however that was thought through is just a fascinating thought process.
Yeah, yeah, it's nuts. So for viewers or listeners, don't worry. MRI machines are insanely huge. I don't think the government can actually look into your brain quite yet until they figure out how to turn your phone into an MRI machine.
Yeah. Well, and that's such an interesting, thought process. I am curious how much sensitivity to electrical signals there actually could be in a sort of detection device. So would we ever be able to get to the point where we're actually detecting the electrical signals out of someone's brain from a short distance with a, you know, moderately, like a small device, right? Could we ever take a phone and say, okay, if I get this phone close enough to your head, um, can I then tell what you're thinking? Certainly, I think that, human thought is largely electrical signals. It's largely, neural signals within the brain. And so I think the trouble in decoding it has been actually decoding it, right? It's not that it's not there and you can't access the information. Decoding it and figuring out how to sort of put together the data on what people are actually thinking. It's at some point, and maybe this is like the Rosetta Stone, right? That unlocks that sort of methodology. But I don't actually know, and this would be something I'm really curious to ask an expert about, like how detectable are those signals, and will the advancement of technology be able to dramatically increase the simplicity of detecting signals from people's brains?
It'd be interesting. It's probably gonna still be hard because if you just look at like Elon Musk with the Neuralink, like they're still needing to like drill into your brain and put like
Right.
1,000 fibers in there, so to get usable information. But who the heck knows, man? Coming up, what what advances we get.
Yeah. Well, this actually brings me into something pretty fascinating. I was reading a like source out of Johns Hopkins University. They were basically saying that possible within our lifetime, and the limits of what's possible within our lifetime has like blown apart, right? It's so much more expansive than I think we thought maybe 5 or 10 years ago. But they were talking about how a biocomputer powered by human brain cells could basically be developed within our lifetime. And I just thought that was an interesting, an interesting thought process by these researchers. Because basically one of the things that I have been reading a lot about, it's a consensus between many different people who are working on artificial intelligence. Like artificial computing is reaching like this ceiling, right? Where the actual computing power and the interconnected neural networks and stuff like that is like hitting the upper limit of what it's actually able to do. But the human brain is just so complex and so well developed that, we're hitting that ceiling. And I think there are a lot of scientists and researchers kind of going, well, can we integrate with the human brain? Because this thing just is so good at, at working at such a high speed and connecting so many different pieces of data.
Yeah, I honestly, I think I read an article on what you're talking about. Basically, this, do not quote me on this, but it was something like the human brain is such an efficient supercomputer that it's drawing 20 watts of power versus like what these supercomputers running like AI, like OpenAI and stuff are like drawing like thousands and thousands of watts of power just to run and train these things. So if you can just use the brain cells as a computer, like it'd be like quantum leaps above where we're at right now.
Yeah. Well, and this is something that I was talking a lot about 5 years ago, and everybody thought I was crazy. Basically, I was talking a lot about the intersection of a few things: artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and basically supercomputing, right? So once you kind of merge, like interconnected data was the third thing I was talking about. So the intersection of artificial intelligence, interconnected data, and the Internet of Things, and quantum computing. So once all of those things come together, this sort of ubiquity will be able to be formed. And it's fascinating how quantum computing is taking off a little at a time, but I think that the implications for when those two things start to kind of merge, most of this like artificial intelligence hardware, I'm not exactly sure what the software is running on in terms of the hardware. So
yeah,
I think a lot of this is just like AWS servers.
It's Edge servers, Microsoft's Edge deal.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And so I don't know if there are people who have put like an AI, a neural net, a large language model on a quantum computer yet. And I don't know what would happen then.
Yeah. I think I've done a lot of reading about the quantum computers. They're still like way, way far off from being cracked.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody's tried it yet. I think with quantum computers, what I've been, my understanding is they need to get them to closer to like to room temperature and more stable.
Yeah.
And they'll be way more accessible, because right now I think they have to keep them like a few degrees above absolute zero in order for these things to work.
Yeah.
Which makes everything like way harder.
Yeah, you've got basically
once they can figure out.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of how all computing was, right? For a period of time, you're like, okay, you don't have a computer in your garage; you have a garage that is your computer, because it's just so enormous. All the software you have to kind of power, and I do think quantum computers they'll probably figure out a way to get those to desktop size.
Yeah, I remember distinctly when I was a kid going to my mom's work. She worked with a big corporation, and she was one of the accountants, and she used to work at a terminal, but then every now and then she had to go change the tapes. So we'd go into this giant room that was like a freezer, literally. We'd walk in, and it was like it was chilled, the air was chilled, and then she'd go and change tapes to get to like last month's accounting work. You know, it's just really fun to think about how far we've come from that point. But we're probably going to go back to where you'll have these you'd rent time on a, I'm sure they're doing that right now, rent time on these quantum computers that are, that are kept at like near zero, but you can log in with the terminal and get it to do things you want to do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense with the actual processing power being hosted elsewhere, and then you're kind of just accessing it. And I think that actually that model of like having your personal machine, actually like tunnel into something else is really the way of the future. I know a lot of people in the tech industry and cybersecurity and all that who are basically, their laptop is essentially just a portal onto the AWS server that they're running a bunch of crazy stuff on. So yeah, that makes sense.
I'm surprised we haven't moved that way faster. But
yeah,
it's cool. Well, did you get a chance to see that Stanford video clip that I sent?
I did not get a chance to see it yet. You want to give me a recap?
Okay. Man, it's early. My brain is not functioning. Like I can kind of remember it, so maybe it's not a good thing to leave on. But basically, he was. Yeah, I don't know it well enough. I think if somebody watched it, then after they hear what I say, it would probably be like, "What is he talking about?"
Yeah,
but maybe we'll talk about it the next time. He talks about how we, the only way to move ahead in the world is to teach the power of innovation and creativity, and like that's literally how education needs to approach this now.
Mm-hmm.
Is to embrace ChatGPT, embrace all these technologies, and teach kids how to be innovative, because that's the only way they're gonna move ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I am continually asking now, and this is kind of a societal question, what is ahead, right? I think that the discovery and definition of that is getting more and more nebulous, I think, for me. There's been an experience throughout history of like, we're making these problems less and less ubiquitous, right? So for instance, this area was impoverished and now it has extra food and water, right? This area is, starved of education and now it has plentiful education and opportunity. Those are really like straightforward answers, I think, to what like getting ahead as a human species means. I think that what I am seeing is like we're kind of moving up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And as we are kind of moving up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, obviously there's huge discrepancy across the globe as to who's actually in what place, right? Like it's extremely crazy. In one sector of the world, you'll have people like worrying about cryogenically freezing their brains so that they might have a shot later, and in another sector of the world, you've got somebody worrying about whether they're going to have enough food to split between their kids, and so I think that's something that's, I'm hoping that sort of discrepancy, you could call it inequality, I suppose. I think that it has a lot of attachment to that term, but I think that's what I'm hoping will be sort of solved, and we'll be able to sort of solve a lot of those problems using AI. But
Yep.
where do we go from there?
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
I see a future that the hopeful side of me sees this. We have you messed around with Whisper AI yet?
No, not yet.
So it is from OpenAI, and it is an insanely accurate voice to text AI, and literally like the example that they gave is you could take somebody with like a Scottish brogue, and it understood this thing. It understood like it was fed this massive corpus of like of different dialects, and so it can understand me. Siri for the longest time could not understand me, so like I just stopped using Siri. But this can understand what I'm saying.
That's amazing.
And like I think what I see happening very soon. I know a lot of people who've got like the kids in Spanish immersion, and they're trying to get the kids to learn second languages. I think language is not going to be a thing on the table anymore. I think you as somebody who's in India, and you speak some dialects of, I don't know, Hindi, and you have no idea what English is, the computer will translate everything for you in real time. And so you'll be able to access the whole web for the first time, really. Like the English, like what we experience as a web, you'll be able to access that and gain the same knowledge as we have. And then you'll also be able to, in real time, talk to people all across the world. You could talk in your dialect, and they can talk in their dialect, and you'll both be able to understand each other in real time. And so I see like the barrier of language, which is a huge barrier. If you're not American, like you just don't understand how difficult it is to break through that barrier. So language is that the barrier is gone. And then the ability for like these AI are on these edge computers and on cloud servers. You're gonna have some little kid in like in India or in Pakistan or wherever in Africa be able to access the same computing power that you and I can do. And so we're gonna see like I think we're gonna see an insane amount of these new this new middle class of people who are able to start doing some amazing things with technology, because for the longest part they were cut out. They couldn't afford a computer with a giant like graphics card that now costs $1,500 per freaking card. They couldn't afford that, and they couldn't break through the language barrier. But now they can probably get a job here virtually and speak in our dialect, and there's none of that. So it's kind of it's exciting to see what this will enable that equality to come up for those who can take.
Yeah. Well, and I think what would be really cool would be going back to the Midjourney example and the MRI machine example, where you're kind of like populating meaning into someone's mind. That would be really helpful. Like, let's just say I'm listening to somebody who speaks a different dialect or a completely different language than I do. It would be very helpful to have real-time meaning, of what they are saying kind of piped in.
Yeah.
So that, like, even though I'm hearing it in their language or their dialect, the actual meaning of that information is being formed in my mind, right? That'd be really cool.
Oh, man, that's kind of it'd be scary too, because sometimes we unintentionally think take the right thing.
Right. Well, and I'm just envisioning like, okay, so after someone says something, or as someone is talking, the context or the content of what they're saying is being translated, and then the translation is basically piped into your mind for additional context, or perhaps the actual meaning is kind of piped in. So let me ask you this question. This is a discussion that I had maybe a year ago that I thought was really interesting. I didn't know that a lot of people have an inner monologue that runs all the time that sounds like them. Do you have one?
Oh yeah. I do, but I see things visually.
Oh,
so yeah. What about
no,
you?
I don't have an internal monologue. I think I just call it thought language. Like I don't think in English. I have to actually, before I'm going to say something, I have to translate it into the English words, which is kind of wild. So yeah, so like stuff stores in my mind as like kind of esoteric concepts, I guess is what you could say. There's not really pictures. There's not really words. It just is like kind of almost like floating in this like soup that has some like hard edges and clear pieces and all that sort of thing. And it all has like these like emotions and components and stuff to it. And so yeah, I mean I'm basically translating my thought language, whatever that happens to be, into English before I talk. And when I hear other people speaking English, I mean it happens so fast, it's instantaneous, right? But but I definitely don't think in English, I guess.
I wonder if what's happening when you ask people that question, if it's very hard for people to, I think, especially modern people to how do you say, introspect themselves to like sit down and deeply think like, okay, what is it that's going on inside here? You know, am I like you've articulated it so well. I mean, there could be a potential translation gap for most people who don't. They're like, oh yeah, I speak in English in my brain.
Sure.
Like, because they haven't actually thought about it.
Yeah, and I've thought about it way too much. I think because that's what I really want. Like, let's say I'm talking to someone else, and you know, I don't really necessarily even care to understand their language or my language. I want thought language, right? I want the communication of like the overall language. There's information, but there's also like sort of this swell of feeling that comes along with it. And it's like I want the information in terms of it's almost like if you envision when you pen up you know, when you pen things on a map, you know, you add the pens and then you add kind of some string, you know, to connect the dots and stuff like that. So it's almost like you're like penning the facts onto the map, and then the strings are like all the emotions or all the feelings that come along with the things that you penned. That's the way I kind of think of it and hear it.
I see. I'm actually writing a screenplay about this, where the world is it's many years in the future, and adults are connected like via a device like Neuralink, where they've basically become like cyborgs, but they're able to move at such a rapid pace. Their communication is so much faster and fluid, like you're saying, because they can share what's in their brain and not have this translation issue that we're always trying to use a limited dialect like English to actually say what we mean. That when those people interact with regular meatbags like us, they can't, because it's so slow. Like so there'll be different classes of people who are operating on this like insane level. And then they won't be able to speak to normal people anymore, because it would be too painful to stoop down to condescend to our level and actually communicate.
You know it's so funny. I watched a video. My wife showed it to me recently. It's this song that this guy did, and this guy does like hilarious songs based on really dumb Facebook comments. So he'll take like this comment or this exchange off of Facebook, and I don't know if these exchanges are are real or fake, but I've certainly seen equivalent exchanges on Facebook that are about this intellect level, right? So so he'll take this really, you know, unintelligent exchange. So for instance, this one woman was convinced that her horse was 15,000 pounds, and you know, she was really insistent that her friend knows nothing, and that's how many pounds it is, and just the like intellectual reasoning in the angry comments about how big her horse actually was were really crazy. And so so then this guy is like making this really complex song out of it, and I'm realizing like, wow, what an enormous discrepancy in intellectual processing, right? Like here's somebody who's like convinced of this really completely illogical thing, and they're just using these like baseline emotions, like this feeling of injustice after having been called out on something, or you know, this desire to be right, all these sort of really like low conscientiousness. Yeah. And now this guy is like, so he's got so much processing power that not only can he know that that's silly, but he can make a complex song about that thing in order to create social dialogue around it that has a melody. And like it's crazy that the two different levels of processing. And I almost wonder if somebody who's like plugged into something like that would look at us as in the same way that you would look at, you know, somebody saying her horse is literally 15,000 pounds on Facebook.
Absolutely. And you know, well, let's bring it to I think in just like 3 years from now, the kids and the people who are going to adopt this technology, and we're talking about like the AI that's available to us now, are going to be moving so fast that like the other people are not going to be able to keep up with them or not understand. I mean, they're going to be able to use tools and achieve things so rapidly that it's just going to surprise people, and people will be overwhelmed by like, how do we, like, what's going on? Like, not going to be able to relate to those people anymore. You know, it's like, you know, with when I remember trying to explain the internet to like, you know, people of my dad's age back then. It was hard, like, for them to get an understanding of what it was, and they also just didn't care. Like, it was like, okay, I've figured everything out now. Like, I don't really need this. This is for young people. But I think this is going to happen on an absolute, like, the most insane speed ever. That same thing, but it's going to leave a lot of people in the dust. Not just old people, but people who just can't, like, maybe just don't have the capacity to keep up with all the changes and to learn new software and to learn new ways of doing things. I think if you're pliable, you're going to be great, and this is going to be an amazing time. But if you're not pliable, and if you need things to be in a steady state, this is going to be one of the most difficult, like, periods of your life in the next
for sure. Well, and I was just thinking about some meme that I saw. Man, basically I'll have to find it because it doesn't make sense outside of context, but it's basically this meme about how you know, Taylor Swift shared some sort of she basically shared some sort of encouragement with a computer class you know, a long time ago, and it turns out one of those kids was Elon Musk, and yeah, it's, you know, it was something like that. So you have to understand so many different. I realized how many different levels of the internet you have to actually understand in order to think that meme is funny. You have to know a lot about Elon Musk. You have to know about Taylor Swift. You have to know the personality of Taylor Swift. You have to know the context of what makes the like wholesome Facebook type meme you know, funny. You have to like, there's so many layers that that you actually have to understand. And I'm wondering if like everything is slowly going to become so incredibly high context, where the jokes are like a lot of the jokes that I think are funny now. You you need like 5 years of Reddit experience to really like appreciate any of it. And I'm wondering if like that's going to be a little of what is coming. We just will have so much context all the time.
Yeah, that is interesting. I've got a theory too that's the we're gonna be speaking or communicating more with basically hieroglyphs of these memes because they can convey so much information in such a short package that language, or at least written language, will shift more that way. I mean, if you just look at what the kids are doing right now, like Gen Z, emojis on the hieroglyphs. We're speaking and pictures, and actually it's more efficient if you understand the context of it. But yeah, then you have people like us or at least me. I don't understand emoji type at all. I'm gonna have to run it through a translator.
Well, and just because I've been so like I've been so saturated with like Reddit and all that sort of thing. I've really been able to keep up with a lot of like Gen Z humor, even though I'm very much not Gen Z in terms of age. And that's been good, but now like there's this next wave that's starting to happen as of the last like year ago, and I'm like, oh man, I don't think I get this. I'm like wondering how long I'm going to keep up with all of this information. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy the amount of context you actually have to have to be able to. I also think like references they have been a really big thing for a long time, right? Like let's say you, everyone I know uses references in a lot of cases, right? They'll use a Parks and Rec quote, let's just say you're talking about camping. Well, you can real quickly reference Tom Haverford's glamping or something like that, right? You can do any of these little references that like the majority of people will understand, and they'll instantly know the context of that thing. They'll instantly know. It almost reminds me of rabbinical teachings back in Jerusalem and things like that, where you could just quote these rabbis would quote like a part of a Hebrew scripture, and basically the other person was expected to know not just exactly right. So it's the same exact thing. But I think that like you're saying, it's a shortcut to meaning. Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. The one thing that we do have for us is that people always want to form community. So, the people will figure it out, like how to. If they want to be part of that group, they're going to try and figure out how to communicate. But it's going to move so fast. That's the deal. And maybe that's a good spot for us to end. That's today's discussion. This is what we're here for. We want to help people to catch up to the train and get on it, and maybe use
well, certainly,
and not be left behind in the dust.
Before the pandemic, I was doing most meetings in person, and I was mostly working with people who were close in proximity. And I think about that, and that seems so foreign to me. I made a list. I think I put it on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter somewhere the other day, where I just made a list of like all of the people that I had interacted with from which countries, right? I had everywhere, like Canada and Pakistan and the UK. I had people in Trinidad and Tobago, and these are like people I interact with every day. Like I talk with all of these people every single day. And so for me, I think it's really opened a lot of doors to be able to, just the world has become more flat and accessible, and you can have community across all these wide spectrums. And I think that's a fantastic thing, right? What I have found out is like there's one guy
Yeah.
from Pakistan who works with us, right? I would, if not for that sort of flattening of the world, I would not have realized that he's one of my best friends. He's so funny. He's such a cool guy. He's got so many similar interests. He's just someone that I really am happy to be doing community with, right? And I'm really enriched by that. I mean, look at us. We're
Yeah.
virtual at the minute. So, but it's just going to accelerate
Yeah.
and accelerate. And I do think people need to, it's critical for people to get on the train. And I also think it's equally critical to be aware of what we're stepping into and be aware of our own humanity and recognize that, okay, let's try to go faster and grow faster and change and adapt and be adaptable and learn how to learn and not just learn, but also like, okay, let's, take time to unplug and still prioritize our in-person connection and our physical bodies and things like that too.
Yeah. And hopefully, I mean,
That's
AI may afford us more time